Alright, can you hear me now? Okay, so we'll be starting in a few minutes. I just have to set up a few more things. Alright, I think we're all set to start. So how's everyone doing today? Good. Is it snowing for anyone else? Because it's snowing outside for me. I think it's the first now of the year, but towards the end of the year. Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool.
I don't know if you have to test your mic or not.
I skipped
But
the test part, so I probably shouldn't have.
it seems fine. Let's see. So I will use my videos so that you guys don't just have to stare at a blank screen the whole time. Okay.
I'm
And
not going to use my video because I'm eating a cookie right now in the dark. So,
that's all right.
but I'll be here.
Okay. This MacBook camera is not very good.
Yeah, mine isn't either. I have the same issue.
All right. Let me not forget to press record. So let us start right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Listening and Critiquing Your Music event. So I'll briefly go over the format of today's event. We have a few pieces of music submitted by composers that we will listen to. Blasty, Operatic, and myself will then give feedback on each piece once it concludes. Operatic unfortunately could not attend live, but I will be reading the comments that he left for each piece. At the end of the event, I will send along the feedback forms we fill out to each corresponding composer, given that I have your contact info. If I don't, then feel free to shoot me a direct message on Gilded. You can find my AB Events server on the Event Partners tab. And I do apologize in advance for the sound compression that Bevy may apply to the audios. If the people who submitted the music grant me permission, then I will be more than happy to attach each audio file to the email to all those who RSVP'd to this event to be able to hear the music in a little bit higher quality. So without further ado, let's jump right into the submitted music. So let's see. I know that the first piece is from White Week, and it is on Spotify. So let me get that open. Mhm. All right. I'm gonna briefly turn off my camera for now. Okay, so let's screen share Spotify. Mm, And let's see how this sounds. And so that was White Week's piece. So I'll just give Blasting myself a few more minutes to fill out the feedback form, and then I'll read off what Operatic put. Okay, so I'm just gonna read off what Operatic put for this specific piece. So Operatic starts with saying that the mix is seemingly alright, and it is a loud mix. Drum patterns and samples are alright in how they were placed. Some ideas for the breaks include applying a low pass or band pass filter to down it a little. Instrument choices are odd, but fine. You could add more by featuring atmospheric pads or something that makes it feel more full. It sounds empty, but has potential. The melody is fine and slightly memorable. So I don't know if you're ready or not, Blasty, to say your thoughts on it, but whenever you're ready, you can share away.
Yeah. One moment, let me switch back over. So I really like what's going on with the highs and the lows. There's really nice contrast in there. The drum entrance, I thought, gave it a really nice punch, and I think that added a lot of power to it, and it was timed really nicely. I like what you did. There was some atonal notes in there that kind of gave it like a tritone feel almost, and that was really unique and really cool, and that really got me more engaged in the song. But I think they could be built into a little bit more. So maybe instead of them being randomly placed, like kind of the notes that are out of the key, maybe instead of them being randomly placed, you could build into something and make kind of a cool little bridge or something. And then I think maybe a suggestion I have is give more of a break for the ear because it's all kind of continuous. So it's hard to tell where your transitions from one idea to the next is. So I think if you give maybe like a decrescendo where kind of quiet it down and then take out your drums and then maybe add your drums back in the next section, that'll give it a little bit more distinction as to where your next um like area or idea is. But overall, I think that's super unique. And like Operatic said, the instrument choice is, I don't want to say odd, like I don't want it to sound negative, but I think it makes a really cool texture. So I think it's awesome and it's super unique, but that's just a couple things that I would suggest.
Yeah, I think I could agree with a lot of your points there. I just think that the one focus that White Wake should really focus in on is the the loudness of the piece, because I think it might clip a little bit. I'm not really sure, but I definitely had to turn down my audio interface a lot to not blow out my eardrums. But I think that there is definitely room for quieter sections that really breaks up the piece from the really fast energy that it gives off. So yeah. Also, I forgot to read the description, so I let each composer give us a little description of the composition, whether to, like, give some background, the goal of the music, any challenges that they were trying to overcome with a specific focus. And the description of this particular piece was collabo with, George1357. That's all, I guess. There's gonna be some really interesting sound bites of his descriptions coming up. So here's the second composition of his. Let's see. In the description to this one, his words, not mine. What's up, guys? Ooh, ah. Good description. But anyways, here's the second piece of his. Okay, so that was the second piece. So I will give blasting myself a minute here to fill in the feedback form, and then I'll read Operatic's comments. Okay, I'll start reading what Operatic had put for his notes. So he says, subs are overwhelming the mix to the point of toppling balance. Maybe you should mix it in mono and also pay attention to the waveform phase. Rhythmically is alright and not so memorable, but hard to judge its structure due to its length. Progression could be improved, maybe. Try some ideas of giving breaks, brief breaks, literally. The key is easily found just by following the key being smashed over and over in the sub. The resulting composition is grittily boring. So, Blasty, whenever you're ready.
So, I think what I would like to hear out of this piece is the placement of the drums. They're overpowering the guitar, and in terms of kind of where they're placed, I think I'd like to hear them back behind the guitar. That way the guitar can kind of shine through and peek through a little bit more. That way it's more of the lead instead of the drums kind of taking over right at the start. But otherwise, I think the melody you've got is pretty neat. I mean, I can rehear it in my head now, and that's always a good sign. But I think the biggest thing for me is just the placement of kind of those guitars and the drums.
Yeah, I think I agree with Operatic when he was saying that the melody is kind of played over and over a little too much. Like, there's a lot more room for creating new ideas or going off of existing ideas and just taking them to a different direction. I think that you're kind of stuck just taking one idea and just reusing it over and over again. So you kind of have to break out of the box there a little bit. And the drum part, the drums are definitely really overwhelming. I think that the mix is definitely clipping a lot. I think you need to compress that a little bit or at least turn down the mix. Do something. It's really in your face. Okay. So we're going to move on to the third piece that he submitted, which is an MP3 file, which I did not download. Okay. So the description of this piece is remastered version in the file overall 2 da ton da 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 da. Lovely descriptions. Okay. So let's do this. And here it is. Okay, so there was that. The title should be on the top left. It's Shiny Mew. Meow, Moo. I don't know how to say that. Just say shiny. So, I'll give Blasty and myself a minute here to fill in the feedback form, and then I will read what Operatic put. Okay, I'm gonna read what Operatic put for his comments. So Operatic says, the mix's high-end pierces a bit too much from the hi-hats. Try reducing it, and also you should try avoid boosting EQs too much, if I believe that's what's happening. Rhythm is matching, but as one unique idea. It's slightly difficult to get them to work in tandem. The drums' franticness is a bit unmatching with the lead guitars. And Blasty, whenever you're ready, you could give your thoughts about this.
I think this song is a lot of my thoughts are similar to the previous song. I think I'd still like to hear a little bit more of that guitar coming out at the front. I do like the texture of the guitar. I think that adds some nice color. Keep that around halfway through. There was a different idea that started to get introduced, but then it switched back to the same melody. And I would like to hear more of that and some more ideas as was mentioned previously. Also, you could probably play around with some guitar accents like staccatos and stuff like that just to change it up. So even if you want to keep the same melody going, you could always add some different accents like that in there to kind of change it up. That way it's not just the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of your points there. That the slight contrasting part that was introduced towards like 56 seconds in, I wish that White Wake expanded off of that a little bit more. Like, it could have really built a nice B section and went back to the A section, making the whole piece overall a little longer with more contrast. I think that a big focus on this is that the mix, once again, is really, really loud. Like, I had to turn down the volume a lot. So I think you still really need to focus on the clipping aspect and, take into consideration the listeners when they open up your piece for the first time. You don't really want to blow out their eardrums. I think, yeah, that is pretty much all I have to say about that. So then we have another piece from him. The description of this composition is two, 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 two. Once again, perfect description.
Man, I'm loving the descriptions.
All right, let's see if Spotify wants to load. All right. I have to actually match up which piece this one is because it is not auto playing. 1 second. For some reason, I can't get up the next piece. Let me try one more time. That does not want to come up. I'll try that again later, see if it wants to work then. So we're just going to move on to the fifth piece that he submitted, which is also the last one, which is not coming up either. Yeah, for some reason, I can't get up the last two pieces of his. So we'll just try those again later. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to the next person who submitted music, which is Ariatic or Bellum ad Astra, who is also with us right now. Alright, so let's hope that this comes up. Okay, that seems to work. Okay, so here's the description of this composition. So this composition is me messing around with some Middle Eastern instrumentation and harmony. Duduk is playing the main melody, and I found a strings patch in one of my libraries that has some Middle Eastern style articulations that I thought were interesting. So let's see how this sounds. Okay, I'll give Blasty myself a minute here to fill in the feedback form, and then we'll say our thoughts. Okay, I'm gonna read what Operatic had put for his comments. Surprisingly, this short sample is great in many aspects, uncountable. The mix is pleasant enough to find it relaxing to listen to. It could improve significantly if the ending was wider and had more atmospheric grandeur in it. Continuity of this could include some percussion as a suggestion. And Blasty, whenever you're ready, you could give your feedback.
I really like this. Compositionally, I love the way the strings and the Eastern instrument is paired. I think it intertwines really nicely, and to Operatic's point, it is really nice to listen to. My only suggestion, if you were to take that as it is now, is maybe put some reverb on the strings, because I know sometimes depending on the instrument packs or the sound libraries you have, the instruments don't always flow super great. I've had a ton of, you know, a ton of my own struggles with that, but maybe some of that reverb will open up, like especially at the ending with what Operatic is saying, it might give it that atmosphere and just kind of give it some more space. And um, but otherwise, I think it sounds great. And yeah, great work.
Yeah, I agree there. Though it's a very short piece, it definitely has a really nice sound to it. I just wish that it was a bit longer, because I think that there's still definitely a lot of potential that you could apply to this piece, such as like a maybe a quieter section or something to add a little bit more dynamic variation to it. But overall, it's a pretty nice piece, and I don't really have too much to say about it. All right, so let us see. Next piece is by the same composer, and the description of this one is another bit of me experimenting with world instruments in harmony, but this time I'm experimenting to try to make a sort of traditional Japanese sounding piece using a shikatsu. I didn't think that I was gonna have to read these instrument names. Shik- I can't even. Some Japanese instrument, koto, and some taiko drums. Okay, I probably butchered that completely. So let us see how that sounds. And I think we're about to get an advertisement. Yes, we have an advertisement that does not want to play right now. Okay. Okay, I'll give Blasting myself a minute here to fill in the feedback form. Okay, I'm gonna read what Operatic put for his comments. Interesting Japanese scale use. In the middle of the track, it just starts to sound uninteresting. Push some variety there. Add some presence slash bottom on the toms or percussion so it can have more of a booming effect. And lastly, whenever you're ready, you could give your suggestions as well.
Yeah, so it started off great. I love the taiko hits. I think that adds a ton to the mix. Towards the end, it the taikos weren't providing all that much, like Abertic was saying. It sounded like they maybe got off rhythm a little bit, which is okay. But I think if you kept those hits steady, like just a boom on the downbeat, and kept your composition building a little bit more, it would have given you that fascination that Operatic is saying is lacking there towards the end. But I love your choice of instruments, and overall, it's gorgeous.
So that's a nice piece. The only thing that I could think of critiquing is the drums. I think that if you have them hit on like a little bit more of a stronger beat, it could really help us to hear the time signature a little bit more clear. I also think that if you add a little bit of reverb to the more melodic instruments to bring them forward, or add reverb to the supporting instruments to put them more back, it will be a little bit more clear in the mix, which is the melody and which is the harmony. And I think that got a little too repetitive towards the middle. There's probably a whole bunch of more ideas that you could have put in there to really expand the piece out a bit more. But overall, it's a nice little piece of music. Okay, so we are going to go to the next piece that Bellum submitted. And the description on this one is, this is a piece that I thought sounded like a bit of a calm menu style theme. And here it is. Okay, I'll give blasting myself a minute here to fill in the feedback form, and then I'll give our thoughts. Okay, I'm gonna read what Operatic had put for his feedback. Arg, the reverb has to be fixed. EQ them because there's mud in it. Interesting use of noise on top of the entire mix. The plugs have some odd touch on the sub/bass. Maybe cut the sub to raise clarity. And Blesty, whenever you're ready, you could give your feedback.
Compositionally, so what I'm noticing is Operatic is more focused kind of on the production side of things, and I'm focusing more on the composition side. I think this is beautiful. I think I did notice the low end on the harp. It's kind of muddy and it's kind of peaking in my headphones a little bit. So I think if you take the way I personally fix that is I take an equalizer and I just kind of squash those lower frequencies down, and that gets rid of enough of the mud for me to keep going with it. The transition, well, the beginning was awesome. I love the scale. I'm a big sucker for harps. I love harps. I use it whenever I can. The scale you had at the beginning was beautiful. And then when the strings came in, that was awesome too. But there was that little portion in between where the harp was just going on its own little tangent, kind of up, down, doing whatever it was doing. I think that made that transition a little bit awkward. So if you could find a way to maybe take that out and just connect the scale at the start to when the strings come in, it would be a lot more powerful. Really nice transition at the end. You took the same idea and from the beginning and put it at the end, and that's what I really like to see, because that means that you have a general structure of the song. So you started with an idea, you broke into another idea, and you ended with that same idea and tied it all together, and that's really nice structure that I like to see. Great work, and this piece is awesome. All of them have been, but this one especially standing out to me.
I just want to say a little critique. I'm gonna be a lot more nitpicky, but when the strings come in, I think that they could crescendo in a little bit more, which will make it sound a little bit more natural instead of just saying, "Oh, we're here." And then, as Plasty said, the harp has a lot of low end. I think that if you clear that up a little bit, the mix will sound a lot better overall. I want to say that I loved the flute. I have to know what sound font you used for that flute. Like, it was very breathy, but it's not too breathy where it's all you hear is breath. I don't know how to describe it. I just really love the flute sound. And now I'm gonna be really, really, really nitpicky just because, well, I can. If you're going for a symphony sound, like a symphony layout, the flutes should be a little bit more so to the left. They're really far right. Also, the violins should be a little bit more to the left. I believe you had violins on the left and right, which kind of sounded out of place. So it'd usually be the violin ones on the left, violins two a little bit more on the left, violas would be center, I believe. And then you would have the cellos and basses more on the right. So I think that if you pan it a little bit more, it'll sound more natural, or maybe that's just me.
Can I sorry, keep going.
No, go ahead.
Can I talk a little bit more about this? Because I really like this. I
Yeah,
think this is
sure.
going in a really nice direction. And this is, I'm gonna extend on this and maybe some different techniques you could play around with, only because I like this one a lot. So I didn't pay a ton of attention to the voice parts that you had, but it sounded like your strings were up in the higher range, and that's kind of where your flute was. One of the, I've been writing music for, gosh, for almost 5 years, and I didn't learn this until about 6 months ago. But voice crossing is important to avoid. So watch out when you have your strings come in that are really close to where your flute is, or where kind of your melody is, because then it can get unstable if those two, like if the strings that are below your flute cross over and get higher, it'll make it sound unstable. So make sure you watch out for that. I didn't hear that at all, but that's something to keep in mind. And Animal Bot mentioned if you want to create that symphonic orchestral sound, one thing that's fun to try is doubling your strings. So say you have the strings that you have there, pan it to the left or something, and then add a little bit of reverb, and then double it, basically make an identical track, and then pan it to the other side or place it somewhere else, and that'll give it a lot more space. And so that's not really anything that has to do with that track specifically, but you're heading in a direction where you're getting really close. And I just want to tell you some things that took me a long time to learn, because I think you could do something really cool if you keep on working on this.
Right, because you mentioned the voice swapping. I just want to say that sometimes if you have like the violins play like E5, you could have the flute come in on the E5 but go up and maybe have the strings go down so you don't like cross the voices. It's like a technique that I know Beethoven used a lot of. It really helps to push forward the piece of music. And lately I've been experimenting with that, and it's a really cool sound when done right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's also that the piece has like a really nice adventure feel to it. It's a really nice piece overall, and hopefully our feedback is useful to you. All right, so let's move on to the next piece. All right, and the description of this one is: here's a bit of a more dramatic piece with a thick texture and sort of meant to give a crystalline feel. Crystalline. Hopefully I said that right. I have no idea. Right here, this one is. Uh, advertisements. Aren't they fun? Okay, so I'll give us a few seconds here and then I'll read Operatic's comments. Okay, I'm just gonna go right ahead and read what Operatic said. EQing the reverb or the sub on the key-like instrument in the intro should be considered. It sort of muds up the mix a little. The slotting of the sounds, panning and placing, sounds about right on spot. The mix overall is in great quality, very easy to switch focus between elements. Can be further improved with extra percussions that keep the pulse heard. And Blasty, whenever you're ready, you could give your feedback as well.
Okay, this is awesome. I've said every piece is awesome, but you guys are really hitting the spot with this stuff. Awesome build up and awesome structure. Can you play the beginning again, AnimalBot? I have one suggestion that's really picky. Okay. All right, so at the beginning it goes bum 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 bum. I think if you get rid of that step below, like the bum bum bum, if you get rid of that note and just have it sustain at whatever note that is, and then you wait until you start to add the other stuff in, and then add in that little I don't know what key this is in. I don't have perfect pitch, but if you then add that little step thing in once you add the other instruments in, I think it'll make the beginning more powerful. That's really specific though, and that's just a personal preference of mine. You do not have to listen to me about that, but that's very nitpicky.
Any other feedback, or is that primarily it?
That's primarily it. I mean, the mix sounds great, and I know that listening to it through your screen sharing, the quality isn't the best, and I know that. I know that's not how the quality actually is, so it's harder for me to hear it kind of the way it actually is. But I think everything sounds awesome, and it's really, really close.
Okay, so I have a few more points to make. So just like the other piece, I think that if you have the strings crescendo a bit more, it will sound more natural when they come in. The viola could also be panned down the center a bit more. I think it was coming off as very far left, if I remember correctly. The horns that came in at a minute 20 to provide some contrast was really nice. I think that you could mix up the chords a bit more. The Celeste, I think, could have a little bit more dynamic variation because when it is solo again towards the middle, it's kind of just the same volume, so it kind of just ruins the mood of the piece a little bit. I think that if it goes a little quieter when it's solo, it could sound a little bit more natural. And I loved the contrast at 240 when the drums came in. That was just absolutely perfect. And the one thing that I just really want to stress is that I think the chords could definitely be changed up a bit more, whether you're using like modulation or if you know about secondary dominants. It's the only thing that would hinder me from listening to this piece again. The chords are just a little too repetitive. So, yeah.
Astra in chat is mentioning about some of the restrictions and limitations.
Ah,
Astra, I just want to let you know, like, I understand that there are tons of limitations and all that. That's why I'm trying to focus on like composition stuff, but I just want you to know that like overall with what you're working with, the way you're arranging it and the way you're putting it all together is awesome. And as you get more into this, you'll have more tools that'll increase the quality and give you more flexibility. But that's exactly how I was. You know, I started out with the bare minimum, kind of trying to work with what I have, and then over time it'll build up, but I'm kind of seeing a reflection of how I started with your work. So, yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing about composition, and like as a composer, you will never stop writing because you will always try to strive for something that is better, but you will never reach what you think is better. So, good work. I just want that to be known for all of you that submitted music.
All right. So let's move on to the final piece. And I will read the description. Okay, so the description for this one is, here's my first proper attempt at creating a piece of music intended to be played over a trailer. I could definitely do better with some more practice, but yeah. Right, so I'll give blasting myself a minute here to fill in the feedback form. Okay, let me read what Operatic has to say. The reverb seems to deteriorate the initial bass, kicks/drums. Only complaint about the imbalanced frequency between left and right after the brass appears. This is generally nice for a trailer, but has a lot of tension and resolutions are a bit up and down. And Blessy, whenever you're ready, you can give your feedback.
It might have just been the way it was playing through, but it sounded like the rhythm was a little off at the start and things weren't quantized the way they should have been. That was the main thing I was focused on, but could you play the start again?
Yeah, it did sound a little bit off though. I just put that the percussion could hit on more strong beats to help with the flow of music. So I think that where the percussion was hitting was on like odd beats and stuff.
I think, but it sounded like there was an arpeggio of something.
Yeah, let me
We'll
play
listen to it
the
again.
yeah, let me play the beginning. It's
I think
a lot of arpeggios.
I think the thing is that the drum or the percussion is following the melody instead of being a root. But also it depends on the strings patch because some of them have attack So if you place, like, a note on the beat, it'll play before the beat because there's more attack on it. So sometimes that's something that can be considered, but yeah, yeah, I have that issue, and sometimes I have to go in and adjust the tick speed, so I have to make it start slightly before the beat. It's a pain, but okay. But that's the big thing I noticed.
Yeah, it's definitely worth pointing out, though, that some instruments, naturally as well, they just hit a lot quicker than some other instruments, so it's definitely something to take in
Yeah,
consideration when
and it
doubling.
happens. I mean, it's not your fault.
Mhm. Yeah, I've faced those problems all the time. Alright, so I think that I have to agree with a lot of points that Blasty says. My big focus, though, again, is just crescendo a bit more. I don't know if you could do that with your VSTs or not, but crescendoing definitely will help make it sound a little bit more natural. And I think that the trumpet part that came in towards the middle, the trumpet had a really nice melody that I wish you brought out a bit more over the drums because it sounded a little buried. It was a really nice contrasting feature to the piece. All right, and thanks for your comments, Bellum. Okay, so that was the last piece of Vellum. All right. So next, we are going to listen to some music from Operatic. Oh, I lied. Or no, we'll go to Operatic first. Okay, so let's see. All right, and the description that Operatic had provided is this composition came from a prolonged experience of listening to some niche genres, mostly tests on the styles, on the focus of sound designing using specific third-party VSTs. It has a more darker feel opposed to my usual style. And here it is. I guess I'll give Blasty and myself a minute here to fill in the feedback form. All right, Blasty, whenever you're ready, you could give your feedback.
It's a really smooth mix, especially for how kind of muddy it gets over the screen share. Um, it's hard to tell, but the hi-hats are really sharp. It is most likely because of the stream and the quality, but otherwise it sounds great. He's got some really cool stuff going in the background there and some really cool dynamic work.
So, as the only one who probably hears it very clearly, I could say that the overall mix was really nice. And the drums were mixed really, really well. They didn't overtake the mix at all, like a few other pieces. And the plucks in the background were very subtle, but very nice. Added lots of characteristic to the piece. And just like the name says, it definitely does sound like an escalating situation. All right. So listen to the next piece that Operatic had submitted. And the description for this one is I can't exactly remember when I made this, but the initial background came from the dreams I was having those nights. The melody line is specifically on the guitarish sound designs. It's in a pleasant mood. And here that is. I guess I'll give blasting myself a minute here to fill in the feedback form. Or blasting, if you're ready, you could give your feedback.
I really do think it's just the stream, but one of his keys, the oh gosh, which one was it? I don't one of them was just peaking so hard in my headphones, and I know it's not actually an issue, but
Yeah, that just
all of
might
it
be the stream.
all of it sounds great, but it's just so hard to tell.
That's fair. I think that the mix was really, really nice. Like, that was a really nice sub bass that you guys probably could not hear, but the sub bass was really, really nice. And just like the other one, the drums did not overtake the mix, which was nice. The mix felt very wide overall. The synths that came in at 104 were very subtle, but they added some really nice contrast. Same with the guitar that came in at 122. I just think that the notes on the guitar could be changed a little bit more because there's some repeated notes that kind of threw off the feel of the guitar a bit. And then 203, the new idea was really nice. So I think overall, this piece, it had lots of ideas that just fit together throughout the music really nicely. And I would definitely listen to this piece again. It was just really nice mix. And I know Operatic will have no problem with me sending his music, so I will definitely send this piece to all of you so you could hear it in full definition, high quality sound, because it's just really nice. Okay, and then we have another piece from Operatic. This one he put, this one is on the challenge to make something that fits the frame of 30 seconds. It's short, it's brief, and it's an interlude, supposedly to test the very minimal bass lines with some fitting drums. And here that one is. Very short, right? Alright, so I'll just give us a minute here to put in the feedback. Blasting, whenever you're ready, you can give your feedback.
It sounds very transitional, so it fits very well for an interlude. It's like quiet, but like makes you ponder. I like it. It's unique. Good choice of instruments.
I think that for a short piece, it was quite nice. Like, there's probably not too much more that you could do about it, but the mix overall was really nice. So yeah. Alright. Now we move on to the fun part, because I myself submitted music, because I am judging people's music, so I might as well have my own music judged, just to make it fair. And Blast, if you want to submit music, I think you still have the form to do so.
If you give me a couple minutes, because you're right, it only is fair. So if you give me a couple minutes, I'll go through my files and see what I can find.
Or hey, you can listen to my music first, go through that, and then you could submit some. We'll take a short break. Alright, so let us open up my music. So let me read what I wrote for this. So with this piano piece, I wanted to focus on the melody and focus more on the direction it can take the listener. And this is A Winter Feeling. I'll give you a few seconds and then I'll read what Operatic wrote and then you can give your feedback. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and read what Operatic put. A lovely composition with a cold setting on the piano. Nothing too spectacular, but its simplicity makes it easy to listen to. Sometimes there are harmonics of chords that barely make it past the saturation, little mud here and there during chords. An idea is to further adjust velocities in the notes to make it a bit more dynamic. Play softly and allow chords to play loud progressively, just as a variation to make it cooler and delicate. And whenever you're ready, you could give your feedback.
Okay. I'm searching through my files at the same time. I really like the intervals that you used. I don't know if they're perfect fits, if they're parallels. Technically, that's not allowed in music theory, but I never follow music theory. It might be like a third or something. But I really like at one point you have a step up, so it's like the bump 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 moving up with the intervals, and it's really nice. It creates this really nice like space and connection between your ideas. That was one thing that stood out to me that just tied it together and it just worked really nice.
Alright. So the next piece that I submitted, here's some background to it. So this orchestral piece was made in September when the changing into fall was occurring. I wanted to compose something that reflected change, whether it be for better or worse. Side note, I love the string buildup in the middle, probably one of my best pieces with strings. And this one is called Autumn Trees. Alright, and here we go. Alright, just gonna hop in and read Operatic's comments. Strings with lots of variation and quite lengthy. Neat. Displacement panning of the instruments is done thoroughly, apparently. Ideas to add. Percussions to make the time signature more obvious. It doesn't have to be very loud, but you can do it subtly. Subtly. And lastly, whenever you're ready.
Your bass lines are gorgeous. Like, they come in at all the right times and they just sustain and they add so much space and dimension to your tracks. I would love to see this performed live. It would be beautiful. The arrangement and instrumentation is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Anything
welcome.
else, or moving on to the next piece?
Moving on to the next piece.
Okay.
I'm in a scribble. I'm trying to submit.
Alright, next piece. So this piece was made back in July. I composed a bunch of random pieces and contrasting styles to prep for my very first music workshop called Composing Your Own Music. Though I consider this nothing special, it holds a special place in my discography. And let's get that up. It has a very unique sound to it. Alright, I'm just gonna go ahead and read what Operatic put. So he says, the piano seems to be put out of focus. Maybe make it more into the foreground. That snare that is panned all the way left is annoying me a little, but maybe that's just me. And lastly, whenever you're ready.
Is that a what instrument do you have there at the end? Is that a vibraphone?
I believe it was a harmonica that I had doubling.
No, like it's like the chime.
A chime at
Is it
the
a
end.
Glock? Yeah. Or is it a piano?
Oh yeah, that's a piano.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's a really nice sound.
I think that
It's
it's also a guitar too. There's like 2 guitars or something. I forget.
well, even better, more texture. It's very groovy. It started, and I was doing a little jig. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It's nice. It is still hard to tell, like clarity and quality,
hmm
but compositionally, it's great.
Yeah, I ran it through like a J37, which is a tape machine, to get a really distorted sound out of it.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. Then on to the next piece. Let us see. And the background to this one. Oh yeah, I wrote quite a bit for the background on this. So this was made quite recently, back in late October. During most of October, I wanted to try to nail in on a genre, and I decided on swing. I looked up simple drum patterns, bass patterns, strumming patterns, and decided to try to go for that style. I composed 3 other pieces before this. The first one was only 30 seconds, the second was about 40 seconds, and the third was about 1 minute. The fourth attempt, this one, was of a normal audio length, which made me feel accomplished. Though I probably did not nail down the swing style or sound, I'll gladly always show this piece off to diversify my music portfolio. And here it is. Compose it out. All right, so go ahead and read what operatic put. Very bustling of many different instruments, various techniques. Despite a lot of elements, it's greatly mixed and balanced. Maybe it's the drums that make it repetitive, but I have no idea how swing changes their drum patterns. And then he did the stuck out face emoji. And lastly, whenever you're ready.
Your drums were syncopated, right? Which is super cool. Gave a really nice effect.
Yeah, I think that I used the Logic Pro drum loop and I timed it with the drums or guitar or something.
Oh, I love Logic's drum loops. I
Yes.
think they are awesome. They are especially great for placeholders. Sometimes I keep them in though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always super like soft and they mix in really nice.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't go wrong with them.
That it did a lot for the rhythm.
Uh-huh. Any other suggestions, or is that pretty much it?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. So let us go to the next piece, which is the final one.
I ended up submitting two.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so here's the background to this one. So this orchestral piece was made back in July for the Dream Game Jam Roblox DevRel held. The intent of this piece was to bring about a dream world-like feeling. Another one of my favorites with orchestration and strings. And here we go. Alright, so go read what operatic put. Orchestral, but doesn't quite strike innovation, and for me sounds just like any other orchestral track. I still like how the flutes play in tandem with the strings and the other elements. It is more atmospheric, fuller, compared to other tracks, which I approve of. And last day, whenever you're ready.
It's it starts off really fluttery and then it builds into this more cinematic work, and I really like the buildup that you have. Um, Personal preference, I think I would have liked, especially in the second half, maybe to hear some more of the other underlying instruments, because the flute was kind of taking over. However, high end coming through the stream is peaking more, so it is more likely than not just the way I'm hearing it. But overall, I really like the direction that you went with that.
Yeah, it's fair. I did focus a lot on the flute, which brought out the high end quite a bit. Alright, so I see that you did submit 2 pieces. So let us listen to those. So here's the description, the background. This one I forget what it's for. Super fun. Good description. Alright, so let's get that and let's go. Alright, so I'm just gonna give myself a minute to get some feedback down. So I really like the harp sound. It sounds very dark and gloomy almost. And then the highs of the strings definitely contrasted with the harp because the strings were a little bit more in a higher register. And then the highs and lows and volume, everything seemed to just crescendo and decrescendo really naturally. I did find one problem though is that uh towards like the middle, I think that the harp sound like it started to wander around a little bit. But it did flow back into the main music quite nicely, so it's not really too much of a problem. I'm just being nitpicky. And yeah, that's all the feedback I could give.
Thanks.
Alright, and then let's open up the next piece. Lovely name. So it's called Who Driving This Bus?
it's not. It's not actually called "Who Driving This Bus." um, I can't give a name. It's for a game, so I can't give any information about it. But I
Oh,
promise it's not
spoilers.
actually called that.
So if anybody hears any popular games that come out with this soundtrack. Okay. So, description. This one is work in progress, has not been mixed yet, and cannot give info about it because it is for a game. And here we go. Okay, I'm gonna give myself a few seconds here to put in the feedback. Okay, so I absolutely love the drums that come in. I think that just adds like a whole new layer of depth to the piece. I also really love the chimes. I'm a sucker for chimes, although I can never write for them too well unless it's for Christmas. And the background instruments for harmony, they blend in really well and really help like present the melody a little bit more rather than overtake it. And those are my suggestions, feedback.
Thanks.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So,
Broken NDA. Someone said no. There's no NDA.
so I think that is all the music. So I think that we could wrap up this event now. A little ahead of schedule, but that is fine. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended. And shortly after this event concludes, you are going to receive a form asking you how this event went, asking you for suggestions, etc. It would mean a lot to me if you fill out that form so I could take into consideration how I should run these events and if I run another event like this in the future. So thank you once again. Thank you to Operatic and Blasty for putting their feedback for everyone to hear. And I will be reaching out to all those who submitted music very shortly to see if I could release your music publicly. And I will send out an email with a Google Drive link to find each music that we listen to. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything else, Blasty.
Not much other than this was really fun and it was awesome hearing everyone's music. You guys are awesome. You guys are all on the right track. Everyone that submitted, keep it up. Don't give up. I know it gets hard sometimes, but it was amazing. And I'm honored to get to listen to it and get to give my feedback.
So thank you once again to everyone for attending, for watching this video. Thank you to those who submitted music. And thanks once again to Blasty and Operatic for taking their time to give the feedback. So this will conclude today's event. Thank you for attending, and please be on the lookout for that feedback form. All right, take care.